What was life like growing up for you?
Well, I was born around 10:30 at night on June 27th. I think that's
I
true.
don't even know when
I
I
don't
was
know.
born.
I think my mom likes to tell it to me because it's like part of the sob story to get her credit, which she absolutely deserves. I wasn't a small baby, but I grew up in Upper Arlington, which is where I live now. So the joke, if for the people that are familiar with the Columbus area, I grew up in the bubble, and it brought me right back, just like it's supposed to. But I always joke that I grew up North Arlington, so it's a little different. It's a little more traditional suburbia, so to say.
Growing up were you into sports? Did you do any, after school programs?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's kind of funny. So I have two kids that are 2 and 4 years old. So my wife and I just last night were having the conversation about, like, what kind of activities they want to, or should we encourage them slash, more than encourage them. So my parents had a rule when I was growing up that I had to play at least one sport. I have a brother and a sister. They're 9 and 11 years older than me. So there's a pretty big gap between
Yeah.
me. So I'm like an only child, but with siblings. My brother played soccer, but he's like 6'3" and skinny and like designed for soccer. So I started in elementary school playing soccer like every kid does, but I realized at some point I was like, okay, I think my body's going a different direction than soccer, and I hate running. So I picked up football, and then I kind of had like that middle school. I don't know if I want to, because that's puberty and
Yeah.
life, blah blah blah. My parents were like, you have to play a sport, so I wound up playing football, and I played that all the way through my senior year. And then I played lacrosse for 2 years as well. I picked it up late, and in Upper Arlington, lacrosse is like a major sport. So I was way
Okay.
behind. So as soon as they had tryouts, I was like, I'll try myself right out of here. So
Yeah.
that's the story. But I did play football. That was my primary sport.
All right. Awesome. Did your parents ever explain? I'm just curious. Did your parents ever explain the reasoning why you have to do at least one sport?
I think they probably had different reasons individually, but it's a Venn diagram, so there's some overlap. But it was a combination of you have to do something physical, like you can't just be a lump on a log. Truthfully, now that I'm a parent, I'm sure it was like get out of the house. I feel like that was probably the main motivation. Um,
Yeah.
but it was also learning to work in some type of, they didn't say it had to be a team sport, but I
Sure.
think that they just assumed no matter what sport, even if it's golf, you're still on a team, you're around peers, and it was about having that experience of success, failure, camaraderie, teamwork. I think that was a big driver behind it. And that's, talking with my wife, with our kids, that's a big driver of where we want to see them, where it's like,
Yeah.
these are just experiences that you have to have. There's socialization, there's physical activity that's really beneficial. So I think that was their motivation. And because that's how life works, now it's our motivation for our kids.
Yeah. I don't know how old you are, but I'm assuming you're probably around my age, and that's when, video games and all that stuff started taking over.
Yeah.
And my parents were get out of the house. You only could play video games for a certain number of hours each day, and now I look back, I'm like, man, I could be if I actually did focus on video games, I actually could be making some decent money. And
Right? That's the funniest thing is like my parents were like, stop building computers. And it's like, I should have kept building computers. But truthfully, I don't know that I academically was going to go far enough that direction to make the kind of money I should. I'm a
Sure.
connector. I just happen to have enough acumen in computers to get along.
Sure. Yeah. No, and I always it's funny. I grew up playing sports, and that was my thing as well. And I always relate a lot of things within the real estate business and how I think of things, and our team and so forth as team sports. you
Yeah.
know, and it's funny because I catch myself, in the real estate side. I was just talking to a brand new agent today, newer within the last month or two, about the mental side of our business where we fail more times than we succeed.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, we're afraid at putting ourselves out there to fail in front of others. Yet I think about all the time playing sports, that never affected me. Like, I
Right.
never was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna step on the court, or I'm not gonna step on the field because I may not play well, or I may not win," or, it was just like, "Go out and give it your best." But yet, when I think of, like, the business sense as an adult, it's like, how many times is that feeling just getting, in our ways of allowing us to take that next step? So,
Yeah. It's so true. My mom is in sales and my dad's an attorney. And my mom, I think, was probably the bigger pusher from that sales background of, hey, no matter the circumstance you go through, you know?
yeah,
So, and
yeah,
I completely agree. Our daughter and son both just did soccer, and our daughter is 4, and you can tell soccer's not the sport.
yeah,
And so it was like, okay. And it's tough as a parent to be, especially at that age where it's like, you got to be pretty involved in it as a parent too, even though they're on
yeah,
their own. But the
right,
one thing was like, we can't let her quit, So we finished the season and she played in the leaves more than she probably hit a soccer ball, but at least was going out there. And, one of the big experiences that at that age is the first time that they start playing against each other, and that
okay,
was really hard at first. But it was cool to see her get used to it, and bare minimum, at first it was tough. It got a little bit better, but in my perspective, it's really important for her to see what it's like to have some type of adversity in a
yeah,
setting that she's already uncomfortable with because soccer's still kind of new. So
yeah,
it's not all
yeah.
about my kids, but that's most of my life. So that's why I sell real estate.
Exactly, exactly. So I want to kind of lead up to high school. Did you go to college? Not go to college? Kind of lead me up to the next couple steps of your life.
Sure. So, in high school, I was going to be a rock and roll star. That was more of the plan. I played several different instruments, and I actually was really into recording music. So I had a lot of equipment for recording, and I would
Okay,
record some friends' bands and stuff. And then the bands that I played in, I would do that as well. College was very much it was not a priority, we'll say, to me, but it was a priority to my parents. So I basically was left it until the last minute, and then I had a buddy that was like, "Hey, I'm going to the University of Toledo. It's open enrollment, and you can live off campus your first year." And I was like, "Sounds cool." So I went there, and I actually initially enrolled under entrepreneurship with a recording technology minor, potentially double major, but they're such different disciplines. I knew it was probably going to be a minor. And I
sure.
wanted to own my own recording studio. That was my game plan. And or party and fail. I don't know. It was kind of like whatever, whatever happens.
What was the now I'm curious, what got you into the entrepreneurship part? What was that like? Because for me, like, sales and being a business owner was never something that I wanted. I kind of found real estate and have just been doing it ever since. But you mentioned your mom was in sales and your dad was an attorney. Did that play a factor into that? Like, did you already have that entrepreneurship, growing up, or was it just, hey, I feel like I love, or I have this passion for, music and recording music, and this is kind of like that next step.
I'm an eclectic individual, so I'm all over the place as far as my background. It's like different seasons of my life or different
Sure.
passion. But it was honestly, it was probably almost genetic, because I remember it's really weird. Like my mom was being in sales was a big factor because she sold medical devices. So I was used to going out with her. Like I would go on appointments with her. So I saw her selling.
Yeah.
But I mean, she's always been very much a corporate person though. So that's not
Sure.
quite entrepreneurship. But I remember like she would, because of work, always had like laptops, and I was exposed to like the Microsoft suite early. And I don't even know why I did this, but I actually made like a business plan on PowerPoint when I was like 10 years old
Oh,
for this. It was like basically like a Staples ripoff. But like, it was like, these are the products I think people would need. No idea how I thought of this, because I don't even think I would do as well now with it. In my business plan, it was so funny. One day I was driving with my mom just up the street from my house, and there was a company that uh, opened up at this corner, and it was almost the exact same name and business plan as what I had. And I was like, what a ripoff. I don't know if they had like hackers, if they found my business plan, but it was always just, for me, like, entrepreneurship was just kind of an inherent thing. I mowed lawns in high school, so for me, it was with encouragement from my parents. It was about finding ways to make money, but the music part came in where I made money so I could go buy music stuff. So like, I was responsible for buying my own recording equipment. So
Sure.
that was really the big motivation. And then I had a job starting, I think it was like my junior year of high school. I worked at a buy sell trade place called Trading Zone. And ironically, by this point in time, I was not super fluent in video games. I played just like the cliche ones. But
Sure.
my strength in that role was that I understood business. That was a little more, it's just, like I said, it's more genetic than anything. I know a lot of people
Right.
stumble into it. I was born into it. And then I kept trying to go corporate throughout my life and just keep getting back into entrepreneurship. But at that buy sell trade place, it really kind of helped me hone my acumen of being a business owner, because I was 16, 17 years old, and I basically ran the store by myself. And that's bringing
Wow.
games in on trade. You have to have a margin. You have to know, like, hey, if you're buying a lot of games, you only have so much cash for the day. How much do you think you're going to have in sales? So that really helped me at an early age take on a lot of responsibility that really helped me grow my entrepreneurship that was kind of inherent.
Did they